Thanks for coming. My name is Lee. I work for a company called Amiqus. We are one of the leading recruiters in the video games industry within the UK. We are here today to share some hints and tips and sort of general advice in terms of CVs, profiles, portfolios, interview techniques, things like that. I'm joined by my colleagues Kim, Leon, and Ethan. So as I mentioned, we're going to go through a bunch of hints and tips. After that, we are going to open it up to some Q&A as well. So please do, if you have any questions, jot them down. We will take them from you at the end, and we'll do our best to answer, honestly and truthfully. So let's get started. First things first, your CV. Here's what clients say they'd like to see. Be clear about what you want to do, what you're looking for in your next career move. Put this on your CV or cover letter. It's okay to have multiple talents when you're in game dev, but clients typically, especially at the beginning of your career, are looking for a specific skill set when they're hiring, so be clear about what you want to do. Include all the skills you have or that you're developing yourself in. One of our clients said that those two things alone will be enough to get an interview. Other things to make sure you include in your CV. An obvious one, but you'll be amazed how many people don't do this. Don't forget your contact details. If they can't phone you or email you, they can't invite you for an interview. You'd be amazed how many people forget that, especially in design-led CVs. Show off your A-level results. List all the extracurricular activities and accomplishments that are relevant to the role. For example, if you've made your own game or film, if you've done courses outside of uni, put them all on there. If you have relevant work experience, then of course include this too. I'll be honest, without any experience outside your courses, a lot of companies won't really be that interested. You know, your extracurricular stuff, your personal stuff, that's what shows your passion for the job that you're going for. Do put that on there. Clients tend to focus on your final year project and modules, so make sure you detail all the learning. What areas you've particularly enjoyed and the project you've worked on, highlighting the role that you've played. When you're applying for a job, tailor your CV to make it specific to the opportunity. When you read the job description on the client's website, if there are buzzwords on there, reflect them in your application and CV. If they're asking for a mocap expert, put mocap on there if you're an animator. You know, if they're looking for a 3D artist to character artist, put character art on there if you're a character artist. Make sure you get a second set of eyes on your CV to proofread it. You'll make mistakes that you won't notice, but clients will. Some don'ts on CVs. There's a lot of don'ts, but I'll only go through a few. First of all, don't use your school email address or anything too elaborate, like cookiemonsterlovemachine@hotmail.com. No, not anymore, it's not. No, that is an email address we've seen before. It doesn't work, it's a professional CV. You need a professional sounding email address. Yes, we've all got embarrassing ones from when we were younger, but you know, maybe it's time to change that. Don't write too much, especially avoid putting in too much detail about all of the part-time jobs that you've done if they're not relevant. Don't use too many fonts. CVs do not have to be overly creative. You can have a design-led CV, and we'll talk about that later in the Q&A, but let your portfolio do the talking when it comes to the creative side, your artistic side. Your CV needs to be relatively factual. If there's too much going on there, if it's too busy, they're not going to find the information that they want to see. Don't send a generic CV either. Do your research, show the client that you really want their job, not just any job. And by that I mean, like I said earlier, if you're applying for a character art job, don't open your art CV with I'm an environment artist and I really want to be an environment artist. You've just told the client that you don't want to do the job that you applied to. So that's your CV.
Thank you. Okay, now onto your portfolio. So regardless of what you're studying, whether you're creative, whether you're technical, you all want to be showing all your skills and hard work on your portfolio. So here's just a few hints and tips of how to make the most of that. So it might sound super obvious, again, a lot of these things sometimes do, but really do make sure that all of your links work. It does happen, we get hyperlinks that we click on that go straight through to an error page and it doesn't look great. Also add a hyperlink. We do sometimes get CVs where you can't click on a portfolio link and you can't even copy and paste it because it's a beautifully design-led sort of photograph image, so please try to make it accessible and easy to review. Make sure that the portfolio itself is easy to navigate, well explained and not too cluttered. What we always suggest is finding someone whose work that you really admire, who's doing the job that you want to get. So it might be an artist who's created art on your favourite game and they are who has inspired you to do what you're doing now. Why don't you find them on LinkedIn, put their name into ArtStation, have a look at their portfolio. That's got them to where they are today. Use that as a benchmark and try to get yours to their standard. We do tend to get quite a lot of questions about what you should show in the portfolio, what you shouldn't. So some clients have fed back to us and they've said that university portfolios can be super wide ranging, but some of the assets on there can be of poor quality. What they'd actually prefer to see is just a few high quality pieces in there. And they are interested in what you've done at university, but if your final year project, for whatever reason, doesn't show your best work, you can just add some additional assets that actually do. Clients actually love it when you put a breakdown. So if you're a game design student, attach the design docs. If you're an artist, show the concept work that got you to that final finished polished piece, etc. What that shows them is how you've actually gone about the work and the process, but it also talks a lot about you as a potential employee as well. Show variety. Sometimes, it's important for generalists, and sometimes people are really specialist in a particular style. They might be a character artist who really focuses on like a realistic human style character. The ability to show that you're able to adapt will help you to get a long-term role. Clients, when they're looking at you and your portfolio, they're obviously thinking about the game they're working on now, maybe the next game they're just about to work on, but they are thinking about you within their business for the next 5 to 10 years. So the more range that you can show and the ability to adapt, the more likely you're going to be a great candidate for their firm. Don't feel that you have to show everything you've ever done. Just include the best examples that you would actually want to show a potential employer on your portfolio. And it's a great idea to tailor any pieces of work to the role that you're applying for, even if it does mean sitting aside and creating a few extra pieces of work. Personal work. Some people are sort of reserved to show this on portfolios. They think sometimes it needs to be all professional. Definitely show personal work. It really demonstrates your commitment outside of what you've been asked to do, and clients absolutely love it. It's also okay to show unfinished work or a progression piece, but just please detail that and make sure that it is addressed so it doesn't look strange next to any of your polished pieces. And finally, look for opportunities where you can do tests from studios. It's a great way to secure a role, but if you're not successful, you can get feedback on why you weren't selected, and it's also a great piece to use in your portfolio as well.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Oh, sorry.
All right, so that's your CV, that's your portfolio. You've sent it off, yay, you've got an interview. This is where it gets a little bit much more scary. So, yeah, job interviews can be a nerve-wracking experience. Prep properly so that you feel comfortable, relaxed, and confident when you're there. Clients expect all candidates to read their website, but those who stand out have gone a little bit further, Googled a little bit deeper, read about what they're working on next, what they've worked on recently, what's gone really well. Probably the most important tip, and you'd be amazed how many people don't do this, play their game. Even if, I appreciate sometimes you might not be able to afford it, but, maybe if you can't play the game, then have a look at videos. Know about the game that they've most recently worked on, because it's almost certain 90% of clients will ask you, what do you think of our stuff? What did you think of this? What did you think of that level? And if your answer to that question is, oh, I didn't play it, you're not interested in them. They'll get that feeling. And as well, if you're going for sort of more, especially I suppose the more creative sides of the roles, design-led especially, they'll want to know, do you have opinions about the way that they've made the game? What are your thoughts about what worked, what didn't work? So again, be brave, have some of your own opinions. I mean, don't go hell for leather and really rip into a company's baby in that regard, but being able to look at what is good design and what is bad design and understand the difference is a key skill. And that is the same for art, that is the same for code. Code's harder to look at, I appreciate, but if you're not sure of the interview format, make sure that you email to check beforehand and ask who you'll be meeting. You can build that into your research as well. You know, go onto LinkedIn, find out the people that you're going to be speaking to, where they worked before. Maybe they went to the same uni that you have. Maybe they'll have hobbies on there. Maybe you'll realize you're both fans of climbing. You can work that into an interview process and, you know, start to form a bit of a bond with your hiring manager. Check to see if there's a test included, and if there is, what that involves. Knowing what to expect when you arrive will help you on your nerves. Make sure you know exactly where you need to be. Give yourself enough time to get there, but don't arrive too early. We've had candidates turn up an hour and a half before. It gets a bit weird when you're really early. I would say the sweet spot is about 15 minutes before your interview, but again, do a trial run if it's a place you've never been before. Check it out. Make sure you know the entrance to the building. Is there any quirks? Is it down a side alley or something like that? Practice for some questions you'll likely be asked. I tend to give a lot of advice, especially sort of younger students or people going in for the first or second interviews with that. It's hard to, you can't prep for every question that you're going to get asked in an interview. It's impossible. And the problem, and if you tried, what will happen is you'll get a question that you've not prepped for and you'll panic. And you suddenly, everything will go to pieces because you've gone, I don't know the answer because I haven't written it down. A lot of your answers to questions should feel natural. You know, a lot of the questions that you might get in an interview should be relatively easy for you to answer. You know, what do you like about video games? What's your favorite video game? Or what are you playing at the moment? What's your favorite aspect of art or programming? These are natural, should be naturally easy questions to answer. The flip side to those questions, they're the ones that maybe you want to prep a good answer for. So, what are you good at? That's easy. You know, I'm good at this. What's your worst skill? What are you weakest at? You know, those are the kinds of questions where maybe you want to have a nice answer prepped. But again, you know, do prepare some questions, but you're not going to get answers to all the questions. Sorry, I went on.
It's okay. Okay, so the interview itself. So you've prepped like mad, and now you're on the way to the big day itself. Now, you might be nervous. Most people get nervous for interviews. But don't let it take over enthusiasm. Nerves are totally understandable, and they're going to expect you to have nerves when you get there. But if you're unable to actually demonstrate the passion and enthusiasm, they could read into that as the fact that you're just not bothered or just not excited about the particular opportunity. Might sound obvious, but do smile and make eye contact, and a nice firm handshake is always going to be a good start when you're greeting the hiring manager. Bear in mind, typically, if you've got the correct skills for the role and the client has invited you for a face-to-face interview, it's more than likely at that stage that they're trying to gauge whether you're actually going to fit in with their team and the culture within the studio. So think to yourself, what are they going to be thinking about if they're looking to see, am I going to be a good team member? They're going to want to know, are you easy to work with? Are you easy to get on with? Are you going to respond well to critique and feedback? Or are you going to be super defensive around that? Do you have a genuine enthusiasm and passion for your subject and the games that they create? So bear those types of things in mind. When it comes to questions, just take your time, breathe, and think about the question that's been asked. If you're a little unsure, you can always ask the question to be asked again. And if you're really stuck on it, you can basically ask just to come back to that at the end of the interview. Don't get thrown off or think it's the end of the world. If you can't answer a question, you just don't know the answer to it. It's just a learning curve. Remember that question, Google it when you get home, prepare an answer if that question ever comes up again, and that will just be knowledge going forward for your next interview. Always have some questions prepared about the company, such as where is they're headed to, what career paths are available within the organisation, how the role that you're applying for fits into the structure of the business, and maybe a bit about the culture of the team and the studio in general. Being appropriately curious is super positive for you and for them, and don't just ask questions for the sake of it, you know, try to make them relevant. A bit of practical advice, and again, it might sound super obvious, but the amount of people who dehydrate and lose their voice in interviews, we get told about it quite a lot, hence the water. So drink water before and during. Yeah, otherwise the opposite might happen. But no, genuinely, it'll just help when you're talking, you'll just help get your breath, and you're not going to get a dry throat and lose your voice altogether. And then, yeah, after the interviews took place, some people don't know whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, but we would say definitely do follow up. Send a nice message to the person that you've met with. You know, it was really, great to meet you. Thank you very much for your time. Please feel free to come back to me if you've got any further questions. And I'm really looking forward to hearing the outcome, and that would be a really nice end to seal that.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. So that's the interview. There's a few other tips which didn't sort of fit nicely into those topics that we also wanted to share with you that we think will help you stand out from the crowd as a grad. I'll whiz through them now. Students who stand out to our clients are those who aren't satisfied with just working on university projects. We touched on it before, personal projects, these sorts of things. They carry a lot of weight because they're the things you do because you love doing it, not because someone told you to do it. I mean, the university work is important. It should usually be sort of your finest piece, especially your final year stuff. But again, personal work, self-learning, self-growth. Oh, I've not done, I've not made a quadruped in my course yet. Oh, I'll go and make one. Go online, YouTube, find some sort of resources there. Make yourself memorable. Get in contact with studios that interest you. Maybe ask about voluntary opportunities or ask for some feedback from them as a professional source, especially if you did get rejected from an interview. It's never nice, but any feedback from a potential employer can help a lot. Maybe there was something missing in your portfolio that you can work on for next time for the next company that you apply to. Be persistent and proactive. Again, Kim sort of touched on that in terms of the following up to the interview. We can't stress it enough. CV sending out, applying for jobs, it's not really a fire and forget exercise. It should be a send it out, keep a spreadsheet, track where you've sent, who came back. If it's not been a week, drop an email, chase them up. Sometimes you can, it sounds terrible, and especially with some of the bigger studios, if you might be one of 200-300 applications to that company. Stuff gets lost, and it's the proactive students that follow up, that sort of seek feedback or sort of seek an answer that can get sort of their foot in the door, really. Take opportunities to build your network. Get business cards printed if you feel it's relevant. Put on their portfolio link, LinkedIn. Attend industry events, game jams, things like that, where people within the games industry will be. Pass these out. Get talking, again, ask for advice. Don't stand out for the wrong reasons. Be careful, and this is a minefield nowadays. We're lucky we kind of got away with it, but be careful with your online profile. A lot of companies will want, especially if you're going for sort of community type roles, if you want to do PR, marketing, this sort of thing, your online presence needs to be a professional presence. Go back through your Facebook, maybe create new Twitter, Facebook, Instagram accounts. Tag them up with the work email address, the professional email address that you've created. We have known people lose jobs or not get interviews because guess what? They slagged off that company's game on Twitter the week before, and now they want to apply. So finally, be flexible with your expectations around project, company, and location. Yes, everyone wants to work for the big AAAs, I'm sure, but very rarely are you lucky enough to kind of get your foot in the door. Sometimes it is a bit of a process, a bit of a ladder that you have to work your way up. I'm not saying sort of settle for anything. That's not the fact, but the likelihood of you walking into Valve with no experience and a graduate portfolio is slim. But you can work your way up there. We know people who've done that. So yeah, that's it. I have one last page. Bear with me. Okay, so hopefully you found some of those tips useful. As I mentioned before, we would now like to open up the floor to sort of questions. If you've got anything you want to ask, please do. Now is the time. Oh. I was worried no one would ask a question, but yeah, haven't you finished? Go for it.
So the games back to an interview
Oh, great question.
for the chill industry?
Yeah, very good question. Really, wear whatever you feel comfortable in. That's what, within reason. No onesies, no sandals, flip flops. Socks, flip flops rather. If you want, do it. But no, generally that's what studios, what clients advise us is. We ask this question a lot, and it's really what you feel comfortable in. Don't go suited and booted, because the industry, as you say, it's a bit more chilled and relaxed than that. But the jeans, a polo t-shirt. You can wear a shirt in, yeah, gamer chic. Lee calls it that. Yeah, it's really what you feel comfortable in within reason. No crazy Hawaiian t-shirts. Do that if that's your jam, that's fine. But just be prepared for the client to be like, is it Hawaiian day or, But it's a good question. It's, yeah.
Did that answer?
Yeah, smart cash.
Yeah. Smart casual, I said. Smart jeans, no ripped jeans, smart shirt. You'll find that what you wear for the interview will probably be a bit smarter than the day-to-day. Most people in the games industry will be wearing jeans and a t-shirt. But it's an interview, you're putting your best self forwards. But if you do turn up in a suit and tie, you will stick out, usually, unless you're going to one of the really big corps for a sales or marketing job, perhaps. Any more questions?
What if you're ill on the day of the interview?
Are you thinking, should I turn up or?
Like contagious ill, like if you turn up, you get someone else sick.
If you're sick, you're sick. It happens. I would always sort of say, that's a hard question. If you can't present your best self at an interview, I would suggest you have to sort of rearrange the interview.
Would they understand it?
Yeah, absolutely, it happens. I mean, if you're doing it 3 or 4 times in a row, then maybe they're going to ask a question, does this guy or girl want this job? Because we've given the opportunity. But no, I mean, we've rearranged interviews. Things happen. It might happen on their side. The interviewer might be sick. I would be reluctant to suggest that you kind of power through and turn up to the interview and just, cause you're not going to give 100%. But yeah, if you're sick, you're sick. If you can medicate and go anyway, and you feel, especially at your level, at graduate level, I think a lot of the time, the emphasis is on talent and passion. Your portfolio is a big part of that. From a talent point of view, but your passion comes from sort of the extracurricular work that you've done, the personal work. And yeah, if you've got a bit of stuff in your nose, then fine, turn up and sort of say, look, I'm really sorry. I was on my eye about turning up, but I really want this job. Yeah, do it that way. But yeah, if you're really sick, then yeah, you've got to cancel. Any more questions? A few versions of your CV.
In regards to your CV, having multiple versions is absolutely fine. It's not cheating because at the end of the day, what you want to be doing is you want to be tailoring that to each specific opportunity that you're going for. If you're applying for a AAA, you're going to be utilizing different sorts of language than you would be if you're applying for an indie maybe. So it's all about, tailoring it once again. So just going back to the points that we made earlier, I would be very confident in saying if you have multiple copies of your CV and you're, having different sort of versions of that, that's absolutely fine. There's nothing about cheating in that at all.
I'd recommend it.
Yeah, massively.
It's again tailoring your application to the job you're going for.
Yeah, your CV should never be finished.
No.
It's alive. It's quite organic. It can change. It should change.
100%. Definitely. Does that answer that? Yeah.
Any more questions?
How do you keep your job once you've got one?
So Kim, do you want to go for this one? Yeah. How do you keep your job once you've got it? Well, you've done the hard bit.
Yeah. In what respect?
When you first join it, you're going to be worried, making little mistakes when you started. It will take a start at usually, but how do we keep the process going and still keep developing to the point of essentially wanting to grow through industry and just make sure that we always stay, involved with the team and, wanting to stay in that
How not to get sacked in your first 6 months. Yeah. Okay. So what you'll find is most professional studios, you will have a probation period, and within that probation period, they will tell you how you're going to be benchmarked about, what does success look like? Do I need to create X amount of assets within a certain time period? Or are you looking at the quality of what I'm doing? They will tell you, and any good studio will be able to sit down with you from day one and say, right, this is how your first 6 months is going to look. We're going to review maybe every week, every month. We'll sit down, we'll talk about what you're doing that's great. We'll talk about things that maybe you could improve on. The last thing is they don't want to hire you and sack you in 6 months and have to go through a whole recruitment process again, interview a ton of people, pay a load of money to bring them on, and then the same happen. Studios really want to retain staff. It's more effective and efficient for them. So they want you to stay and they want you to do well. So I just think working in harmony with a manager, understanding their expectations of you and how it's being measured. If you're getting into month 4 and there's major concerns, you need to know what they are so you can work on those. But there should not be a surprise in 6 months and it's like, right, you're a rubbish, off you go. Any little alarm bells should be brought up early, and then you can identify those and address those earlier. Does that help? Yeah? Cool. I think this gentleman has a question.
I'm in first year and I'm sort of, how would I go about balancing my uni work and my own sort of work outside of uni?
Shall I answer, or anybody else?
Yeah, go for it.
It's a good question actually, because obviously everyone has their passion projects that they want to work on, and they carry so much weight. Your uni work is obviously key to you getting your qualification. So what I would probably say is to make sure that your university work is really, really well looked after. And if you've got a passion project, maybe identify how much time you can work on that every week. So it might be like, well, my Sundays are free, so I'm going to have 3 to 4 hours on a Sunday to invest in my passion project. It might be that you'd love to invest a lot more time in that, but sadly, if you've got requirements within the course, they are going to take priority at this stage because you want to come out with the qualification. And then I would say, just balancing that as time goes on, but I would really make sure that, the uni work does take priority at this stage, if that's helpful. Okay.
I believe we're out of time, but thank you everyone for coming. Yeah, we're having to wrap up.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers, guys.